Just ahead on News Center 13, live from Washington, Vice President-elect Dan Quayle outlines the education policies for the new administration coming up, and we'll talk to some Hoosier youngsters who have some suggestions of their own.
And if you're in the market for inaugural souvenirs, Bruce Kopp has some ideas and prices. There is everything from buttons to commemorative chili seasoning. Bob Gregory and Don Hein are back in Indianapolis with tonight's weather and sports, and we're live from Washington. It's all next on the News Center. Stay with us.
WTHR, Channel 13, Indianapolis. Live from the heart of Indiana, this is News Center 13 at 6 o'clock with Tom Cochrun, Betsy Ross, Bob Gregory's exclusive AccuWeather forecast, and Don Hein Sports.
I, Ronald Reagan,
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
With those very 35 words, George Herbert Walker Bush becomes the nation's 41st president tomorrow. He is the first sitting vice president to be elected president since Martin Van Buren in the early 19th century. Good evening, Indiana. I'm Tom Cochrun.
And I'm Betsy Ross. And of course, as you can probably hear behind us, it is a busy night already tonight. We are getting ready for Inauguration Eve, and there's going to be a big bash here tonight. We are live from the Sheraton, Washington, and tonight the Indiana Society of Washington is going to honor Vice President-elect Dan Quayle and his wife Marilyn at a ball tonight. Now, tickets to tonight's ball, as you can imagine, became hot sellers after a while. Shortly after the election, about 2,000 people are expected to fill the ballroom here later on at the Sheraton, Washington. And by the way, we'll learn a little bit more about the Indiana Society in just a few moments. But by this time tonight, the nation is going to have a new president and a new vice president. George Bush and Dan Quayle will be taking their oaths of office tomorrow. And the day before the inauguration has been a busy one, as you can imagine, for both men here in Washington. For Quayle, his day started with a number of television interviews with several networks. And then his first major stop of the morning today was before a group he spent much of his campaign with, America's students. And the topic was education. The meeting was called Looking Forward, and it was a pep rally of sorts for the young people who had supported the Bush-Quayle ticket. They were rewarded for their loyalty by a surprise visit from President-elect Bush.
As I look forward from this bicentennial inaugural, I do see a better educated America, an America that respects teachers and the noble role they fill in our society.
George Bush campaigned on the premise that he wanted to be known as the education president. Well, today, he and members of his future cabinet gave some ideas on what they want to do in the next 4 years with education. Among the speakers, William Bennett, the incoming drug czar, and Jack Kemp, the future housing secretary. But it was Vice President-elect Dan Quayle who emphasized George Bush's plans to concentrate on education.
I can tell you that his commitment to helping people, and particularly helping people that have not had the opportunities in life, is not only genuine, but he has a deep compassion to helping those people out.
Some Indiana students attending today's rally had their own thoughts about what the new president should do about education.
I think there should be a strengthening the high schools and the younger schools as well as the colleges, and that should be emphasized.
I would like to see him enforce maybe some of the policies that Indiana has on the A+ program. We need to enforce, really project better education throughout our youth.
Quayle outlined a broad agenda for education, and one specific he did mention today was an emphasis on educating engineers, especially aerospace engineers, to strengthen America's future in space. Tom?
The soon-to-be Mr. Vice President is rapidly becoming Mr. Popularity. For example, an afternoon reception turned out much larger than anyone expected. Rich Van Wyk was there and has the story.
Even Dan Quayle's biggest supporters never expected 13,000 people to spend $20 an hour in line to hear a 5-minute speech.
I think it's a testimony to his popularity.
Never leave home.
And if you'll talk to some of these people, they're not only Indiana people.
Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I think Dan Quayle is going to surprise everybody and be a great vice president.
Looking excited but relaxed, the soon-to-be vice president joked with supporters, separated into small groups of roughly 1,000.
And my mother and father will be happy to know that I'll be gainfully employed once again.
Dan Quayle is taking satisfaction in having the last word against critics who tried to shoot down his candidacy.
Winston Churchill once said that there's nothing more exhilarating in life than to be shot at without result.
Are there any "we told you so" feeling among Hoosiers?
Yes, absolutely.
Along with lots of pride, there is a little remorse among fans, friends, and co-workers as the vice presidency takes him out of their reach.
People that have been close to him for a long time couldn't get close to him, and that's kind of sad.
The supporters see today's reception as a sign of Dan Quayle's increasing popularity and prominence as a national figure. It is also a sign of Indiana's newest favorite son growing more distant of the Hoosier state. Rich Van Wyk, News Center 13, reporting from Washington.
It has been a gorgeous day in Washington, and many people have been outside. For example, hundreds of workers around Capitol Hill spent this day putting the finishing touches on for tomorrow's big ceremony. Camera platforms for network coverage of the inauguration were getting the last nails hammered in this afternoon. Huge flags will form the backdrop for the swearing in of George Bush and Hoosier Dan Quayle on the west portico of the Capitol. Hundreds of invited guests will fill chairs for the event. The standing room is open to the public. About 250,000 people are expected for the big ceremony tomorrow.
And we mentioned a little while ago about the Indiana Society having the ball tonight for the Quayles. Now, the Indiana Society is a unique bipartisan organization here in Washington. It's made up of Hoosiers living on the Potomac now and is mainly a social organization. And joining us now live in the ballroom is Bob Cutter. He is the president of the society. Bob, tell me a little bit about the history of the society.
Well, the society was founded back in the 1920s by some Hoosiers who came out at that time. We were one of the first state societies to be founded that long ago. We have about 1,400 members now, and most of them are here tonight, I'm sure, plus many from Indiana. But we do a lot of philanthropic things. We have an Indiana park that we've adopted here in Washington.
What has the ascension of Dan Quayle meant for the Indiana Society, Washington chapter?
Well, certainly tonight's event is a very good indication of that. We have 3 times the number of people we had 4 years ago. So we've had a very interesting logistical problem putting it together. But I am certain that our membership will certainly go up, and there'll be a lot more Hoosier-type events that will be going on.
That's right. One of the hottest tickets in town tonight is this
That
ball.
is one of the hottest tickets. We even had to close off our requests.
I bet.
Bob, we thank you for your gracious hospitality tonight.
Well, we hope you enjoy it, and do come back again.
We
would
will.
love to have you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bob
you.
Cutter. We are going to switch back to the News Center in Indianapolis now for a look at news in Indiana on this day before the inauguration. Here's Paul Morrison. Paul?
Okay, thank you, Tom and Betsy. They're counting ballots at this hour at union headquarters for the 1,000 workers for the city of Indianapolis.
Union leaders urge the workers to vote no on the city's contract offer. Members of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees voted on a pay raise of 3% this year and 4% next year. Damage is estimated at $2 million at a near Southwest Side printing company. Firefighters believe the blaze started in the basement, and it may have smoldered for hours before the 2-alarm fire was reported. Just a few hours after Notre Dame's football team celebrated their national championship, one of the players died of a heart attack. Bob Satterfield collapsed at a nightclub in South Bend. School officials say they have no hint what caused Satterfield's death. And the Anderson man police believe is the cat burglar faces more criminal charges. Hamilton County officials are adding 5 burglary counts to 2 charges in Hancock County.
And police say 47-year-old rural Stephen Hogue is behind burglaries from Fort Wayne to Evansville committed over many months. And now back to Tom and Betsy with our inaugural coverage in Washington.
All right, thank you, Paul Morrison.
Thanks for that update, Paul. Well, what kind of relationship will George Bush have with Congress coming up in his administration? Well, you'll hear from Indiana's senior congressional member coming up next.
Plus, you'll get a look at the official inaugural souvenirs. There is one for every budget.
And this is News Center 13 live via SkyPath from Washington.
Back live from Washington. Once the ceremony ends and celebrating Republicans leave this town, the new president, George Bush, will have to get used to living with his new neighbors at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, the Congress, most of whom are Democrats. As a ranking member of Congress, Indiana's Lee Hamilton expects improved executive legislative relations.
President Bush is a past member of the Congress. He knows many members of the Congress. He's at ease with members of the Congress.
He sees of President Bush reaching out to Congress, particularly on foreign policy.
We have now an unusual opportunity to try to build a genuinely bipartisan foreign policy, perhaps a better opportunity than we've had in a long time.
And over the next 4 years, U.S. foreign policy will shift focus.
I think the next president of the United States is going to spend a lot of time looking south because we've got a lot of problems there.
Problems like the fragility of democracy, the power of drug lords, and debt. Bush is more pragmatic, less ideological than Reagan, which will help in congressional relations. Still, Hamilton sees flashpoints.
He will have to decide very quickly what he's going to do with respect to Central America. That's going to be one of his central concerns early on.
By the way, Lee Hamilton foresees Mexico and El Salvador, which he calls very critical, as rapidly replacing Nicaragua on the list of priorities. Tonight on the News Center at 11 o'clock, the Democrats' view of the Bush budget realities. Betsy?
Well, when all the hoopla is over here in Washington, a lot of the inaugural visitors will be going home with more than just a memory that they've been having here. They will go back with a lot of souvenirs, too. Bruce Kopp reports.
Not unlike Indianapolis at race time, the street-side souvenir stands are everywhere.
Okay, there, $5.
The main items, T-shirts, pennants, and buttons. But the official souvenirs of this bicentennial inaugural go for as much as $1,200 for this Crystal Eagle and as little as 95 cents for this George to George book cover.
What's the most popular item?
I think I'd have to say the medal is the most popular because of the collector side of it.
There's a George Bush fountain pen for $300, a replica of George Bush's favorite golf shirt, $35. Out of all 48 items available, Dan Quayle appears on one, the inaugural oath and photo priced at $17.50. And for $15 a bottle, you can buy the champagne they'll use to toast George Bush at lunch tomorrow after he's inaugurated.
This is a special cuvee that has been specially aged for the inauguration ceremonies.
It isn't on the inaugural menu, but chili seasoning is an official souvenir. It comes in 3 flavors, and it's become a favorite of the Secret Service.
So how do you read me? I'm out on the street.
Read your 5x5, Bill. Thank you very much.
More than $2 million in merchandise will likely be sold. The money will pay for the free inaugural public events, with the surplus going to charity. In Washington, Bruce Kopp, News Center 13.
Somehow Bruce is the perfect reporter for that story.
Yeah, he didn't tell us that he's probably going to buy most of that stuff that he was talking about. You know, one of the hottest souvenirs that may be going around, especially with the Hoosiers, is a button that I saw today. It says Quayle for President in 1996.
That's an interesting thought, isn't it?
People will be collecting them.
Well, coming next, Bob Gregory's exclusive AccuWeather forecast for Indiana and Washington.
And it's been beautiful in both places. And in sports, Don Hein will give us a preview of tonight's game that the Pacers face with the Cavaliers. Stay with us.
Bob Gregory's AccuWeather carries the seal of approval from the American Meteorological Society.
Well, Bob, I have to tell you, it was absolutely beautiful here. I think anyone who was here 4 years ago when it was so cold, half the things had to be canceled. I mean, we are just appreciating it so much. I was out running this morning about 7:30, and it was 47 degrees already this morning.
Did you take your warm-up suit and weights there? You may need them later tomorrow afternoon.
I've got them.
Yeah, it's going to be different. I don't know what Bob Ryan is saying there in Washington, but our word here is that even though temperatures will be in the low 50s under partly sunny skies, it's going to be very, very windy. We think that gusts may exceed 40 miles an hour tomorrow during the afternoon. Have a couple of fronts go through there. The clouds will thicken up later in the afternoon, and you might even have a little bit of umbrella time before the day is over with. So that's what we see for Washington from here. A little closer to home, boy, was spring-like again. When will winter come? Oh, I can hear it knocking at the door. 54-33, our combination last year for today. 52 was our high and 27 our low. We've officially not had any precipitation yet. At the present time, 50. 50 here in the Weather Center. Cloudy, 49 at the airport. Humidity stands at 48%. Southwest breeze at 15. Pressure, that's been steady at 30.01 for the past couple of hours. Now, take a look at our National Weather Service radar, and there's some spots of precipitation showing up north of the Kokomo-Lafayette area, also in the southeastern part of the state, and then right along 74 there, just east of Danville, over Park County. Some sprinkles, and not all of that may be even reaching the ground because it's been so dry in the lower levels of the atmosphere. Composite of National Weather Service radar now, you can see where most of the activity remains along the Texas Gulf Coast, with some rather heavy showers and even some thunderstorms there, and then snow showers in the northern part of the region. South of the Duluth area, they've picked up as much as 6 inches of snow. Here you see the cloud cover in the country, with the nation's midsection and most of the west just enjoying plenty of sunshine and really an unusually warm day. This is the windy maker right now, pushing off to the east, and behind it nothing more than a wind shift. This will quickly follow in behind that, and then our temperatures will really start to drop off. So with our morning lows, we'll not recover a great deal during the day tomorrow. They will have pushed off to the east and be threatening the nation's capital and much of the East Coast, with a chance of a shower later in the day. Rather windy conditions, and then the colder air settles in. For us, high pressure will move in. It'll be cold. We'll have to watch this baby, because all month long since Christmas, things have been fine. This is going to traverse across southern Florida, and that means they could get a shower down there Super Bowl day time. Temperatures generally in the 30s and 40s throughout much of our region. The warm temperatures stay down in Florida. These are the numbers that we'll look at tomorrow. Because of the northwesterly flow of winds, we could end up with a few snow flurries and maybe a little squall of snow off the lake. So here's what my AccuWeather forecast will have for us tonight. We'll talk about partly cloudy skies. There will be a chance for a brief shower at times. Our overnight low temperature will come in at 30 degrees. Now, during the day tomorrow, a much colder day with some clouds and sunshine, a blustery day. Could even have a snow flurry with a 32-degree high. Our winds will be out of the north-northwest, 15 to 25. So that means our wind chill temperatures in the single numbers. 14 with a low tomorrow night under clear skies. Saturday, sunshine, 32. Partly sunny, 42 for Sunday. That's it in weather for right now, and we'll go back to Washington there, all right?
All right. Okay, thank you very much, Robert. We hope it doesn't get too windy too early tomorrow.
Really?
Well, let's make the transition to sports now. And Don Hein, not only did we talk Pacer basketball with people in Washington today, but they're also getting ready with your kind of music tonight. Big band stuff.
Great stuff. About how long did you talk Pacer basketball? About 9 minutes?
About as long as their winning streaks last.
A minute for each victory. Well, how do you like my tie in Washington? Can you check in your monitors there?
It's wonderful, Don. It's beautiful.
Thank you very much. I knew we'd do well in Washington with this tie. Hey, we'll come back here with a little college basketball in just a second. All right. Well, hi again, everyone. San Jose State has a problem on its hands which seems easily solved. The entire basketball team says it will boycott games unless the coach, Bill Berry, is relieved of his duties. Berry's been there 10 years, and the players say he's verbally abusive. It's not as if the players didn't know Berry's style when they came, huh? My suggestion is get rid of the players if they want to teach them a little bit of discipline. There wouldn't be many coaches operating confidently, I don't think, if their jobs were in jeopardy every time a player didn't like him. Gene Katie's an excellent disciplinarian, but he sure can't make his players hit the open shot. This happened a lot last night, and so did this. The turnover just worked out that Minnesota was the team playing better defense the last 10 minutes. And they weren't standing around. They were difficult to play against, and that's why Minnesota won by 10 and Purdue is 2-2 in the league. Now, Indiana will be at Wisconsin tonight, and another good one is Iowa at Ohio State. Ball State won the battle of the stats last night at Muncie with Toledo, but Toledo won the important part. They finished with more points. The Cardinals shot just 28%.
We gave them some problems with our defense, and they were a little tentative and missed some shots, and shots that they normally make. You know, they got some good 8-12-foot shots that didn't go in. And we got the rebound, and they didn't put it back.
Butler's home to the Cards at Hinkle on Saturday afternoon at 4, but there's an excellent chance the men from Muncie will have more fans in the stands than the Bulldogs will.
Probably be more red here than there will be blue, but it's our gym. I mean, they may have more fans here, but it's our gym, and, you know, we like that. It's a big rivalry. I think it's going to be even more so with the crowd.
That's a great floor on which to play. Has a lot of spring to it. And to set you up for the Pacers and the Cavs at MSA tonight, here's Darrell Burnett.
Now you got to get post position. Now if I go back up to set the back pick, you fight it again.
Fight. When push comes to shove tonight, the Pacers have to slow Mark Price to have any hopes of slowing the winningest team in the NBA. Price is capable of stealing the ball and the show. He's averaging nearly 18 points, 9 assists, and 1.6 steals.
Great skills. He's a marvelous shooter, great with the ball, as good as anybody ever on the pick and roll. He's a defender. He does it all, and he's totally unselfish, and he's just totally into the game.
Price was so totally into the game last December 4th, he passed and shot his way to a career high against the Pacers and hasn't been out of the lineup since.
I'd like to say I don't remember it, but I do, yeah. Mark's a very good player. You know, he gives everybody in the league trouble, so, you know, we played pretty good against him at Cleveland the last time we played. We kept him under control, so hopefully we can do the same tonight.
As Dick Versace ponders ways to stop Mark Price, the Cleveland catalyst, he must also ponder ways to stop a losing streak that now numbers 3. Darrell Burnett, News Center 13 Sports.
And Betsy and Tom, back in Washington, I think all the people around the Indianapolis area are going to be glad to know, at least the tennis fans, that there will be professional tennis here in Indianapolis in 1990. The ATP tournament will be played here, and it's for like $650,000, something like that. We'll have a lot of basketball for you at 11.
I think it is the Gene Donati Band. They sound great in warm-up.
How many trombones do they have?
I'll count them and let you know at 11.
All right.
All right.
We'll see you later on. And we'll be back right after this. Coming up at 11 o'clock on News Center 13 tonight, you can hear they're warming up already. We're getting ready for the big pre-inaugural ball tonight, the Indiana Society Ball with Vice President-elect Dan Quayle. He'll be paying a visit to the Hoosier delegation here in Washington. Plus, we'll take a look at the often rocky road the man from Indiana faced on his way to the vice presidency. That's all coming up on the News Center tonight at 11 o'clock.
And finally tonight on this newscast with The Beat, the vice president says he's going to be taking a keen interest in urban affairs. To drive home that point today, Hoosier Dan Quayle drove to a Washington fast food restaurant where he rubbed elbows with the working folk. But he slid into a booth to chat with a young woman, though. He found out she was part of his own Secret Service detachment.
But he was friendly anyway. Well, we're going to put on our dancing shoes, I think, and get ready to go downstairs. That will do it for News Center 13 live right now from Washington.
We'll see you at 11 from Washington.
Good night.